So Phil, I've just got changed. What is the benefit of a bike fit?
To understand how their body interacts with the bike. They may have some niggles. They may be unsure whether the bike's the right size for them. So we can check all those sort of components out and get them happy on the bike.
What will this include?
First off, a rider interview. So I need to know what's good, what's bad, where you've got some discomfort.
Everywhere.
Yeah. Reasons for the fit. You know, is it an injury? Do you want to go faster? Do you want to be more comfortable? And then we adapt that to how you interact with the bike. So yeah, just give me a little bit of background about you.
My history is that I've never done a bike fit or anything like that. So I've always kind of done the guesswork when it comes to my saddle height and when it comes to my cleat position and so forth. And I lost 20 kilos last year in the span of a year. I'm currently riding 4.5 hours a week.
Anything that is kind of major that gives you a little bit of pain, discomfort, you know it's there, doesn't go away.
So I think 2 months ago I was riding on my trainer with this specific bike, and my heel was hitting my my crank,
Okay.
which probably is not ideal.
No.
So that's something I noticed. But outside of that, I noticed my posture is bad, but it's not like I can fix that in one second.
So the next thing we're going to do is look at your sit bone measurement. So this determines kind of width of saddle to suit the rider's pelvic needs. This is the bit that we're measuring. So this is the ischial tuberosity, and this will be a 143 saddle stock. And you probably need the next size up. What you'll find is that your sit bone is probably here, not here. So it's not fully supported. So what you tend to do, constantly doing this, and the pelvis is going to be just destabilized. This is the device. This is what we're going to sit on. In here there's about 600 to 700 little sensors. So if you want to take a seat on here and feel yourself on there, so what we'll do is take a capture, and it's measuring those two hot spots. Okay, 132. So that's your sit bone measurement, which now tells me effectively what size width saddle you need. So there we go. So we know that we need a 155 saddle to make you superbly comfortable on the saddle.
Before we continue, let's talk about the Breakaway app, an essential part of my cycling training. When I started my cycling journey, I simply didn't know how to train. How long should I ride? How fast should I ride? What types of rides should I do to get closer to my goal of losing weight? As a beginner, I just didn't have an answer to these questions, and that's where the Breakaway app comes in, delivering a coach in your pocket experience to the masses. I use it to figure out what my next training ride will look like, but also to track my previous training. I also love tracking my personal power records because it's like a video game character that I'm trying to level up, but I'm the character. Anyway, if the Breakaway app sounds pretty cool to you, sign up through the link in the description. That way you can get a 1-month free trial and 25% off a yearly subscription. Check it out below. Anyway, back to the bike fit.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to start looking at your feet in a little bit more detail. We want to look at the amount of support a rider needs with the foot and inside the shoe. In an unweighted position, which will be you sitting, there will be potentially a void in here. As soon as you put pressure on the pedals to the bottom of the pedal stroke, what tends to happen is the foot will roll in and it will collapse. And all of a sudden, we've got a lot of foot movement. We're going to be totally inefficient. So we measure what that is.
These devices are heat-sensitive pads. Basically, if you touch them, it leaves an impression. The plan is to first take an impression of my feet in an unweighted sitting position.
And at this point as well, we can usually see if a rider's got one foot slightly bigger than another, and your left is a little bit bigger. And again from here, oh yeah. And we can just feel that we've got quite high arches here as well, so your foot will collapse very early through the pedal stroke.
And then a second impression in a weighted standing position. The aim is to figure out how much my high arches collapse when going from an unweighted to a weighted position. And as you can see, on the unweighted impression, the middle of the feet is much thinner, which confirms the major collapse of my arches. The solution for this are footbeds that properly support my feet. But this wasn't the only problem with my feet.
So right foot does come out more than the left. So basically your cleat rotation needs to mirror how you stand. So this is where cleat alignment is very important to get that alignment to be as neutral, as comfortable as possible.
Talking about cleats, that's the next thing Phil took a look at.
So this is pretty good shape in terms of its position, because what we're looking for from the centre of the metatarsal, we want that axle to be pretty much about 1 centimetre behind, so we're not literally pedaling on our toes. That's at about maybe 11 or 12 degrees. So it might need to come in more to suit your body. So cleat position wise, you've done quite a good job on that. It's just a shame that they're absolutely shot. Let's pop these ones in. And you can see that's coming in a little bit more. We're still fairly okay on that. So we probably want to get that cleat just back a little bit on that one.
The next part was doing a plethora of exercises to figure out how flexible my body was. That way, Phil could spot any issues and also impingements along the way. One notable issue is that when I lift up my left leg, for example to clip into the pedals, I sometimes notice the light cramp coming up, which apparently comes from a slight hip impingement.
So in summary, what we've seen so far then, a mild hip impingement, fairly okay hamstring, just on the limitations of what we're looking at, so saddle height is going to be crucial.
We are over halfway into the bike fit and we have not even touched the bike yet, but that moment is about to arrive. Let me introduce one of the two bikes I own, a second-hand Specialized Alley. I bought it somewhere around London near the end of 2022, and the seller turned out to be a listener of the podcast, the Lantern Rouge Cycling Podcast. Anyway, back to the bike fit. The following part is what makes the Retül bike fit quite different from a generic bike fit. At the moment, Phil is basically scanning the measurements of my bike so that the shape of my bike is available in the Retül software. The thing is, not just the bike needs to be scanned, also myself. So Phil started adding these small dots on my body, a few on my foot, some on my hip, some on my knees, and then Phil connected all these dots with a long cable. This way, while I'm riding, all my movements could be seen relative to the bike on the screen. So now I jumped on the bike to figure out what my original position is like. This means without correcting any issues we've noticed so far. Anyway, after a short ride, these were the results.
Looking at the board, column 1 will always be the right side or the drive side, column 3 is the non-drive side, and column 2 will be the difference between the two. Happy days is column 2 being small numbers. And then we know that we're nice and symmetrical. Knee extension is our angulation in the knee. So we knew that your left arch is higher, your left foot's slightly bigger. So the left side is probably coming into the bike a little bit more. So we know we've got a little bit of tightness because we're on the higher range of the range here in the hip. We know that we've got some pains in the hip. So we want to get that pelvis stabilized as much as we can, which will be a correct width saddle.
So we analyzed that my feet are asymmetrical and that I have high arches. But how do we solve these issues? Footbeds that properly support my feet. Now, because my feet are asymmetrical, I can't get away with the off-the-shelf footbeds. So Phil will mold me some custom footbeds especially made for my feet. That's where this device comes in. I put my feet in the blue stuff. That way a mold of my feet is being made. Phil takes out the custom footbeds, heats them up with what looks like a glorified hairdryer in order to make them malleable. He shoves them into the mold we just made of my feet. A few minutes later, the footbeds have taken on the shape of my feet and are ready to be taken out. There we go, custom footbeds acquired. Next up, let's talk cleats. Step 1, taking off the old cleats. Step 2, unboxing the new cleats and putting them on, but not entirely.
So we know that your right foot comes out more than your left foot, so I'm going to heel that in just a little bit more.
And after adjusting, Phil makes sure they stay put. There we go, shoe problem solved. We also know I need a wider saddle. So Phil takes off my old saddle and puts on a new one, a wider one. With both my shoes and my saddle fixed, it's time to jump back on the bike.
What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the saddle up a little bit, believe it or not. So if you just want to slide off, okay, and try that. We've reduced a little bit of angulation in the knee. Travel of the hip is a little bit less. So we've now equalised your hip out. So we're now getting this down to a smaller number in here, whereas before it was quite far out.
Yeah.
So that's a massive improvement. From left to right, we are nice and square in the hip, nice and square in the back, and the shoulder to wrist and the elbows, everything is really, really good. Reducing that hip flexor impingement is probably what we want to look at mostly. So we can signpost you to some stretching exercises, that would be ideal to do. So we've remeasured it, we've got you comfortable. The next step would be me sending you the file, and then you'd go away, get some riding in, report back. How does it feel in the real world as opposed to on a jig? And then we can then review that at those points going forward.
So, it's now early June, roughly a month and a half since my bike fit, and honestly, I can't complain. It is hard to judge whether the bike fit has directly impacted my watts because I've also been training, so it's logical that the numbers have gone up. But the thing is, my position is comfortable, more comfortable than before. In the end, what's important to me is that I now know that my position isn't just based on my own guesswork, that I'm not leaving potential watts out there by not being in the right position. Anyway, in the next video, I'll get you up to date to what I've been up to when it comes to my training, and next to that, I've done some challenges and that will be coming up on the channel soon, so can't wait to show you. That's it for now, thanks for watching, goodbye.